Hi. So yeah, um, in this video, I'll walk through the core backend logic of LedgerMind and explain how the chatbot understands the questions, decides what is allowed, and safely computes answers from the dataset. I'll focus mainly on the intent parsing and execution logic because that's where most of the design and decisions live. So coming to the intent parser, I'll start with the intent parser because this well defines how the system understands user questions. So the main idea here is that I don't rely on an LLM to decide intent, like no Gemini API keys or OpenAI Claude is used. So yeah, instead I use explicit rules so that the behavior is predictable, auditable, and quite safe. So no external leakage is also there. So yeah, at the top here, I have defined some of the like small set of intents. We have a count, we have aggregation, we have performance comparison, and yeah, no. So this constraint is intentional. I didn't want an open-ended intent space because in financial data systems, ambiguity is quite dangerous, they say. So coming to past intent, now this is like a contractor between a parser and an executor. So instead of passing raw text around, I convert every question into structured object that clearly states what the user wants or which data set to use, which aggregation to apply. This makes the execution layer very simple and deterministic. Now, if it comes to like blocking the questions, like which one should not like provide and hallucinate with the question itself and the answer. So yeah, the first thing inside the parse intent side is the like block the compound questions. Like you have to target and these are there are two types of and basically. So yeah, both of them. So if a question contains multiple intents joined with and, I immediately refuse it. So this is deliberate. Uh, let's why not refuse it over returning a partial misleading answer, which is especially important for financial queries. Like so, sort of we don't need when the whole game is about numbers. And whenever we are talking up to financial levels, the game is more about the queries are more about the numbers. So there's no much of a warm sort of theory is needed. So yeah, for that. Now the explanatory questions are also one of a kind that I just told you. So these are blocked, and whenever the explanations like why and explain or any reason, that is also not much of needed in this level. So even though these questions sounds reasonable, the dataset doesn't actually contain the causal explanation. So instead of guessing, the system explicitly refuses. Then we have the performance type questions. This section handles the performance comparison questions. So like I explicitly match phrases like best performing. Then we have the highest profit, highest P&L, profit and loss, and yeah, along with that, I also intentionally refuse vague phrases like total performance because that term isn't well defined in the dataset. So this one is quite an can be a red flag for that. Now, yeah, this is important. The ordering part is quite important here. So basically, count checks. The order here goes with count, aggregation, sum, aggregation, mean, and then number. So count checks happen before aggregation, and safety checks happen before everything else. So yeah, this prevents cases where a question like how many total trades accidentally gets treated as a sum instead of a count. And overall, so overall, this file is all about controlling behavior, not just matching words. So this was the intent parser. Now coming to the executor file. Yeah. So once an intent is passed, it gets passed to the executor. So the executor's job is simple, like take a structured intent and produce a deterministic answer from the dataset. So coming to the dataset selection, yeah, the executor first decides which data to set to use. If you are giving with trades file and holding file, so which one to use here. So this decision is already made in the intent parcel, so there is no ambiguity in it here. But then the count. In this case, the count is handled separately. We don't treat it as an aggregation because counting rows is fundamentally different operation than summing or averaging values. And the aggregation logic, for aggregation, the executor explicitly selects the column based on keywords like we have price, quantity, then value. Uh, I avoid aggregating IDs, or we should avoid aggregating IDs or meaningless columns. If a valid metric can't be inferred, the executor refuses instead of guessing. So then again it prevents hallucination messages. And the determination in this case, yeah. Actually, the important thing here is that for the same question and same data set, the executor will always return the same result. It's not like if you're changing the question or bending the question style, the answer will be bended. No, it should not go like that. Again, it's about number games. So it will again and again give the same reason. So that's the ultimate goal here. Now we have the data loader file. This uh, here the data set is loaded once at startup instead of like reloading them on every request. And why this workflow is better, I would say, because now this avoids unnecessary disk reads, improves performance also, more efficient it is, and ensures the schema consistency. It also makes it very clear which data the system is allowed to access, and that is better overall rather than reading on every request, like going through the data set on every question request. This thing is much more better and efficient. Now we have the chat. Yeah, this one. So this file defines the main chat endpoints. Like the endpoint itself is very thin here. The flow is the basic flow here is we have to receive the question, the request and all. Receive the question, parse intent, execute intent, and then return the answer. The API does not contain any business logic here. It just coordinates the flow. That's the thing here. And about the error handling, if anything goes wrong, the API returns a safe fallback response instead of exposing errors or stack traces. It will just come up with a message. So that's a fine thing. And now the wiring and all that is being carried in the main file. So this file usually, as we know, wires everything together. It registers routes, especially the health endpoint. A health endpoint exists purely for why this health endpoint is written is basically for deployment thing. Because if you are working in production level, the deployment verification and monitoring is done side by side. So it's useful in production environment, and shows operational awareness. So yeah, for that it is much more needed. And then comes the front end. The front end is not very much complicated. It's kind of basic, not much of a thing here. Uh, yeah. So the front end is intentionally minimal. It sends questions and displays answers. That's it, not much of a thing. The front end does not also interpret answers, perform calculations, or apply logic. All intelligent, everything is carried over in backend. And here the backend URL is kept using environment variables. So the front end works locally and in production, like the same front end works. So yeah, uh, to summarize, the core idea behind our chatbot is correctness or cleverness. The accuracy here matters more than the manipulation. That the LLMs are much more expert when we are going with like the audience matters here, and the domain. So the financial domain we can't risk it out. So yeah, correctness is much more, and the accuracy much more is chosen here. The system is designed to answer only what it can prove from the data and explicitly refuse everything else. That trade-off is intentional and critical for financial use cases. So yeah, that would be it. Thank you so much for reviewing it.